And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome aboard. I'm National Weather Service meteorologist Peter Chan with your Alaska Marine Weather Outlook on this Friday, March 7th, 2025. And this outlook will be for the weekend, Saturday and Sunday. We start with the state of the sea ice on this Friday afternoon. And the ice is all the way down and just past St. Matthew around areas of Nunavik Island into Kuskokwim Bay. We do find, though, there has been ice melt and not much in the way of ice here in Bristol Bay, as well as a lot of loss of ice here up in through Upper Cook Inlet. We've had daytime temperatures above freezing, even up near 40 degrees since this past weekend across areas, the Anchorage Bowl and northern Cook Inlet, so that ice has melted there. Now, we do have a strong front that's going to be coming in across the lower Bering Sea, heading up along the southwest coast. Ahead of it, winds are going to be east-southeasterly. We could see this ice maybe shift a little bit south and west, but then it will tend to stall. The stronger north winds will be especially from St. Lawrence Island up through the Bering Strait as we go over the course of the weekend. So late tonight into early Saturday morning, we have this low that's going to be riding right along the lower Gulf North Pacific interface. This low is going to take an eastward track and then just weaken later this weekend. Meanwhile, the low out here, this is a stronger low, and it'll be crossing up into the southwest Bering Sea with this front arcing ahead of it. That'll sweep across the Aleutians on Saturday and then push up along the Bristol Bay and Kuskokwim coastlines Saturday evening before pulling across the southwest interior. So Saturday afternoon, we see a secondary low develop at the triple point, and this low will continue to take shape over Kodiak Island on Sunday. Meanwhile, the low out over the lower Gulf, North Pacific will just continue to weaken. A few lighter rain and snow showers, rain showers at lower elevations and some snow showers along the coastal mountains. This system will have a better burst of some snow moving up into the southwest coastline and northern parts of the Alaska Peninsula. There is a winter storm watch for this area for Saturday evening into early Sunday morning. And then by the time we get into Sunday afternoon, we'll find that secondary low right there along Kodiak Island, and the front pushing up into the southwest interior inland of Kuskokwim, Bristol Bays to the low that's back out here over the central Bering. So the marine forecast for the southeast on Saturday, we're looking at east-southeast winds as high as 25 knots down here around Metlakatla, waves 6-8 feet. Stevens Passage, 3-foot waves, northwest winds to 10 knots with 2 3-foot waves in Lynn Canal. And then for the outer coast, look for south-southeast winds around 20 to 25 knots, Sitka to off of Craig, waves running 12 feet. And then easterly winds as high as 25 knots out of the icy strait with 12-foot waves, and then 15-knot easterly winds out of Yakutat Bay and Cape Suckling. For Sunday, southeast winds as high as 20 knots around Ketchikan, Metlakatla, waves 5-6 feet. 2-foot waves across Stevens Passage with southeast winds to 10 knots, and then northeast winds 15 knots with 2 to 3-foot waves there, Lynn Canal. For the outer coast, south-southwest winds south of Sitka 15 to 20 knots as we go up through the Sitka to the icy strait. Southeast winds 15 knots, and then easterly winds 20 to 25 knots from Yakutat Bay out to Cape Suckling. Waves running generally 8 feet in that northeastern area of the Gulf. Within Prince William Sound Saturday, northeast winds 15 knots, 3-foot waves. We have northeast winds outside of Hinchinbrook Entrance and off of Kayak Island with waves 10 to 12 feet. North and Middle Cook Inlet, north winds 10 knots, waves 2 to 3 feet. And then northwest winds out of Kamishak Bay to Kennedy Entrance there, and lower Cook Inlet with waves of 4 to 5 feet. On Sunday, a little breezier, especially areas outside of Hinchinbrook Entrance and off the Kenai coast. We're looking for easterly winds to 30 knots. In fact, all the way down there just northeast of Kodiak Island, waves running 8 to 10 feet. East winds of 25 knots within Prince William Sound with 6-foot waves. And then the northern and middle Cook Inlet, north winds 20 to 25 knots, waves 5 to 6 feet, but easterly winds here down toward Kennedy Entrance at 25 to 30 knots with waves running 8 feet. On Saturday, across Kodiak Island, north winds to 20 knots, 5-foot waves Shelikof Strait, 8 feet off of Akiak and Kodiak Island. And then down here, as we drop down along The Alaska Peninsula winds will be south-southeast to 30 to 35 knots as you get down here toward Cold Bay False Pass. Waves generally as high as 8 feet off of False Pass, 4 to 6 feet outside of Bristol Bay to north of Cold Bay. And then on Sunday, we're getting more of a westerly component to the winds. West-southwest winds, 25-30 knots surrounding Kodiak Island. And then as we trail out down along the length of the Alaska Peninsula, look for southwest to west winds, 25 to 30 knots, highest waves either side there, Cold Bay False Pass running 12, 14 feet. Now the Aleutians, that's where the action is. We have that low that's going to bottom out just above 960 millibars in the southwest corner there of the Bering. So across the Aleutians, southeast gales, 35 knots there around Unalaska. And along and behind the front winds go southwesterly gale force to storm force winds through the middle Aleutians, gale force winds right around 40 knots, 45 to 50 knot storm force winds west of Adak from the southwest, especially Kiska through Shimeo, where waves will be running around or a bit over 25 feet. For Sunday, with the low taking a position more toward the central Gulf, we have a broad area of gale to storm force winds. We're looking at southwest to westerly gales of 40 to 45 knots over the eastern central Aleutians. West of Adak through Kiska and Shimea, westerly storm force winds of 50 to 55 knots, and waves out there, especially to the west and south of Kiska, could exceed 30 feet. And for Saturday, variable winds within Bristol Bay as high as 25 knots, 45 knot gales there across the Pribilofs from the southeast with 12-foot waves, easterly storm force winds around St. Matthew with 15 to 17-foot waves, and then generally east-northeast winds out of Kuskokwim Bay off the lower Yukon Delta and Norton Sound, strongest off of the lower Yukon Delta from Hooper Bay down through Etolan Strait and out of Kuskokwim Bay. And we're going to have a band of snow move up into this region Saturday evening and Saturday night. That's why that winter storm watch is in effect for this area. It will likely be upgraded to some sort of advisory or warning when I bring you this broadcast tomorrow. Then on Sunday, the front, just by the wind shift here, you can see winds turn south-southwest into Kuskokwim and Bristol Bays, and then 30-knot winds, Pribilofs with 20-foot waves. Easterly winds ahead of the front, lower Yukon Delta, and 30-knot winds out of Norton Sound. For Saturday, from the Bering Strait to the north side of St. Lawrence Island, generally north-northeast winds at 25 knots. As we go up to Point Hope, easterly winds to 25 knots. And then lighter winds, Point Lay up to Utqiagvik, we're looking at east-northeast winds 5 to 15 knots. Strongest winds along the Beaufort Sea coast will be over toward Barter Island, Kaktovik. Easterly gales to 35 knots on Saturday with a potential for some blowing snow there. And then Sunday, strongest winds to 40 knots, same areas around Barter Island, Kaktovik. This area could see 40-knot easterly gales with some blowing snow, but as you get from Prudhoe Bay out through Utqiagvik, generally easterly winds at 15 knots, and then through the area between Wainwright and Point Hope, northeast winds to 15 knots. Strongest winds will be northeasterly through the Bering Strait, 25 knots, as high as 35 knots on Sunday on the north side of St. Lawrence Island in the vicinity of Gamble.